Hey, guess who decided to grace us with his presence? Freddy Cruz of Speke Podcasting. So Reena knows Freddy in real life. And Freddy's putting on a cool show. So his show is coming up in October, and we'll get all into that in a second with Freddy. And it's zombie themed. You know, like Halloween, zombies, get it, right? That led us on to a really cool discussion of what a quote-unquote zombie podcast is. If you haven't heard the term before, it's not a podcast about zombies or, horror films or anything like that. Typically, in the podcaster realm, a zombie podcast is a podcast that is just no longer produced. It's just sitting there in the directories as a, audio file. Anybody can listen to it, but they're not making any more of it. So in a way, dead, but undead. Anybody can animate it at will just by listening to it. The creator of the show just doesn't make it anymore. So that's pretty cool that it has a name. That it has a name is pretty cool. I started thinking, I was wondering out loud, what about those of us like me who has all sorts of shows in this very same RSS feed? So if you go back through time, a lot of those shows, the files were uploaded with different artwork, and the show was called a different name, and everything was different intro music, different style. So I'm like, what do we call those? Because I'm still using this RSS feed. This quote-unquote podcast is not dead. It's not a zombie podcast. It's active. So I think we should call those old shows that are hidden in feeds Ghosts Podcast. So therefore, we have Zombie Podcast and now Ghost Podcast hidden in your old RSS feeds. And I'm like, what difference does it make, really, if it's active or not? I think a lot of people in the industry like to use the term podfade and terms like, zombie podcast derisively, as if you're supposed to continually, perpetually make podcasts as if you are a radio station. And that's just not the case. And I think it's unfair to call somebody who started and finished a project pod fading or a zombie in a derisive context. But labeling those old shows is important for one reason, I'm thinking. Zombie podcasts are older. What's that mean? It means they were made with humans, real humans speaking in real words, making mistakes, saying whatever humans want to say. That's important. And so are Ghosts podcasts to that extent, but, they're still active in the feed. But I just want to say, if you have what's been called a zombie podcast, or if you've been accused of pod fading because you don't keep making podcasts, remember this: the value of those MP3 files and WAV files that you've been uploading to the internet are getting more and more valuable because they are human. They're not AI. They're not machine-made. Effectively, we have zombies and ghosts versus machines in the future. What kind of podcast would, if you're going to have to listen to reruns anyway, would you rather hear an old show made by humans or an old show made by AI? So think about that. What's a zombie AI podcast? That's just junk. A machine podcast that is no longer produced is simply junk, right? So we've got zombies and ghosts versus the machine. Some ghosts are stuck in the machine, but that's a whole different thing. Anyway, it's important to remember when you're making podcasts currently, you're a human. Unless you're already using AI, then you're a transhuman. You are already part machine. So if you want to peel that back and continue to make analog, real life, human content, I guarantee that is going to be far more valuable 10, 15, 20 years from now than any AI bullshit you might be considering making.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
So that said, let's get into it here with Freddy Cruz of Speke Podcasting. This is Reena Friedman Watts and myself with Freddy. Hey, we're talking to Freddy Cruz. Freddy, tell us about your podcast and your big plans for October.
Yes, so I've got two podcasts. One of them is centered around the city of Houston called Cruise Through HTX. It's a play on my last name and the city where I live. And then the second one is called Your Mic. It's for new and aspiring podcast hosts. And we are doing something in October that I've been wanting to do for quite some time, is that is a live event. And so SpekeFest was born on a Saturday in January when I was taking my daughter back to LSU for the spring semester, and I had spent an afternoon in a hotel talking with my Perplexity chatbot about what a podcast conference for SpekeFest, for Speke Podcasting, my company, would look like. And so this was about 5.5 hours. I obviously have no social life, but I love it because we came up with quite a few concepts, ideas, and ways that I can integrate my friends and colleagues in the space, and even some clients who are also friends, podcast pals, and it's just starting to really, really come together. And I have never been so confident about something that I've never done in my entire life.
That's my favorite thing ever. So what's the secret sauce to putting on an event? Have you done events before, and are you doing anything in particular that's going to be different for this next one, like thematically?
I've never done anything like this. Now, I will say
that
when I was, I did contract marketing for an animal shelter, and we did plan events, but nothing like this centered around podcasting or marketing. It was more along the lines of fundraising events and a pet costume contest, an obvious contrast to what this is, where you're trying to pull in people from outside of Houston, outside of Texas, from around the world. There are people that I've been messaging on LinkedIn trying to get some interest from various companies that are adjacent to the podcast world. So, like I said, I'm cautious. I'm not even cautiously optimistic. I'm just really confident in this, not having any experience whatsoever.
I love that kind of confidence.
I love that you're admitting to that.
Well, and that's the kind of audacity it takes for human society to progress, doesn't it? Somebody had to say, like, hey, I think, seems like I should be able to do that. Why can't I do that? And
I know a lot of people. Yeah, I know a lot of people. So why the hell not? And I love that you said audacity, because I really feel like I feel like there are not enough audacious people, or maybe not framed that way. Maybe there are not enough people willing to be audacious in what they want to do in their lives, and so that's why they stick with the 9 to 5, or stick with the thing that's familiar to them.
Yeah, and I think when I say audacious in this sense, I mean like a sense of courage, for sure. I think of stand-up comedians as audacious, like who do you think you are, kind of thing, right? But it's not from a place of indignant. It's like, well, how I want to be like that. It's, you know what I mean? It's like, oh my God, this guy's actually doing the thing that most people just think about. So yeah, that's fucking awesome. See, I just added an adjective to an adjective.
I want to know more about that conversation with your daughter. Like, what ideas were spawning there?
Oh no, it was she didn't want to do anything, so we just hung out in the hotel room. And my daughter is one of the very few people who I could just sit and we can just be doing our own thing and not speak an entire word at all to each other. We could just exist next to each other, and it's just magical. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so what did, I feel the same way. I think I see the look in Reena's face too. Like, as a parent, it is pretty magical when you could sit with your kid and there's not a weird tension or nobody's asking anything. It's just almost like a couple of bears in the cave, just chilling. I like that feeling. So we talked about, before we came on and started recording a little bit, we talked about zombie podcast. We'll get into the definition of zombie podcast. I want to hear what everyone thinks a zombie podcast is. There might be some common themes. But how is that playing into your event?
So, confession, I have a zombie podcast. It's from my previous radio career. So in my previous radio career, they were asking us to start to do a little more content creation.
Neat.
And I'm like, well, I'm sure as fuck not going to be dancing on TikTok and pointing at, and pointing
I'm a
at screens
fucking
like some
grown
kind of numbscull.
Right.
I'm a grown-ass man.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit.
I say those exact same words a lot. I'm a grown-ass man. I don't
I'm a
do
grown-ass man. I don't give a rat's ass if I'm playing Billie Eilish every 30 fucking minutes. You're not going to get me to be on TikTok pointing at nothing.
Dude, consuming it is one thing. Putting it back out into the world is not. I draw the line at that shit.
And there was a serious hard line. So I decided to start a podcast because I began listening to a bunch of different podcasts. And so I'm like, well, and at the time I was writing books and I was working on a second book, and I'm like, well, that's what I'll do, is just have a podcast about books. And so now being in the podcast production industry, having a podcast about books is boring because it's not niche enough. There's so many different types of books. What kind of podcast about books are you going to have? You can't just make it general, right? Yeah. There are over 1 million books that are published every single year.
Yeah.
So now it's like if I were to have a podcast about books, it would have to be very specific, 18th century American history, or is it going to be like neo-colonialism, or is it going to be like vampire romance? So it's all about the niche, but that was my first podcast, and so obviously when I left the radio station, it became a zombie podcast. So not dead, also not releasing new episodes because I no longer work there. Right. It's just there, existing.
At least it exists still.
I think. I haven't bothered to look. I don't really talk too much about my previous radio career, so I haven't had much interest in trying to look for it.
Yeah,
but I bet it's there.
It has to. My thought is the same thing in doing this research. What do you think of when you hear the term zombie podcast, Reena?
So I was thinking like kind of what Freddie was saying, podcasts that were created that are just sitting there. They haven't released anything in months, or they might need a makeover. They might need a rebrand. Even your podcast that we're on right now, you've changed the title multiple times, the graphics multiple times. Mm-hmm. You've gone in different directions.
Yeah.
From mental health to doing interviews to just taking little bits out of conversations. I love that about your show. This
brought up an interesting thing because I approached chat with I said, these are going to be philosophical questions I was asking chat. Like, we're talking the nature of zombie. I'm like, well, what if they come back? Okay, hypothetically, someone finds your podcast about colonialism or something, right? You did a podcast on books, colonial books. You're a collector and you like a specific 5 authors. Well, all of a sudden it's the internet age now. Someone finds those MPEG files over whatever at the radio station, starts putting them up, doesn't pay you, doesn't give you credit, of course. It's their content, whatever. People become interested in that. There's nothing barring you from starting the same show again because, well, that's just how things worked out in this case. Now what's the podcast? So chat's like, oh, now it's reanimated. You're talking about a revived. And I'm like, oh, okay, so we got zombies, we've got reanimators, and then I'm like, what about a show like my dumb show where I just I start making new content, I put new graphic files, everything else, and the others just get buried. And like, let's call that a ghost. Those are ghost shows. They still exist, but you have to go look for them. They're not creeping and like floating up into the ether. But to your point earlier, I think they are, because when I went to go see if any of my old like mental health episodes were up, I've deleted those years ago, right? Because I wanted to have a job. And sorry,
and the internet is forever.
So yeah. So they're still up there. If people know what to look for. In fact, I still sport the same little logo from that show. But yeah, fucking.
I want to have a job.
yeah. Don't have a mental health podcast if you want to have a job.
Why would that be? I'm curious now.
Well, okay, people are like, well, they can't fire you for that, but they don't care. The jobs will fire you for whatever, and they'll just make up a different reason.
True.
They just don't want people. They don't want crazy people working with them, I guess. I don't know. There's a thing like when you go through some kind of mental health crisis or mental illness, that you want some allies. You want people to just try to understand. So one way to do that is just to wave the flag, say, "Hey, I'm mental," and then you'll attract other similar mentals to you, and then you're great, cool. And it's comforting for like the first 10 minutes, and then it's like, fuck, now I've surrounded myself with a bunch of people who are as crazy or crazier than myself. Much in the same way, if you put a semi-good kid into juvenile hall for too long, he'll just become a bad kid. If you're only semi-mental, like it's just going through a phase, like your parents said, well, if you start hanging around with a bunch of other mentals, you're going to really become problematic. So I think I suffered from that with the show bit, but I don't want to digress into
You're like, let me bring on people who are just as crazy, if not crazier than me, and then
yeah, I was telling Reena, then
my whole show will be that.
What you focus on grows, and then my whole life was thinking about people's mental problems. I'm like, oh, fuck.
That's how I felt at Springer after working there for a couple of years. I was like, oh my God, do normal relationships exist? I'm like, if you listen to that 7 days a week, from the time you get up until the time you go to bed, and you are constantly looking for those kind of home-wrecking stories, that's who you attract as well. It's actually crazy how it bleeds into your personal life.
Yeah.
That's why they tell you not to watch the news.
Exactly.
Because, I mean, if you believe everything the local news tells you, on national news too, but, the local news, you would think that the moment you walk out to go check your mail, boom, bullet between your eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Like you've got,
Yep. You're going to get raped at the laundry room. Watch out. You got to run through the fire to get there.
I sometimes do feel paranoid going to pick up my kids. Like,
They got you. They got you. The terrorists are
I'm
winning.
looking all around. Yeah.
It's funny. In that case, the terrorists would be the mainstream media, like the pop media, I call them. Like, if they got you paranoid, then they are winning.
Don't look at Twitter before you pick up the kids. Yeah.
Oh, God. There's a podcast. It's called You're Welcome. So
My welcome?
he named it You're Welcome just to troll people.
Just to get comments.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Just to get comments. And so he posits that sometime in the future that we are going to be looking at quote unquote big media the way we now look at quote unquote big tobacco.
Yeah, I was going to say big pharma. Yeah.
Or big pharma.
Yeah, definitely. It's big something. I always got my eyes out for big somethings. I'm in the store the other day. I was like, yeah, big corn is on to something here. They raised the price.
Corn, big candy.
Yeah, they raised the price of ears of corn from 25 cents a piece to 33 cents a piece. And I'm like, it should be peak corn season. I think big corn is up to something.
Those mother shuckers.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's get back to zombie podcasts. Because how do you... So we all kind of... Do you have a zombie podcast, Reena?
I do actually. The very first show that I co-hosted, I first started off and I was just doing casting for the show called Next Level People. And then they brought me on as a co-host for about 20 episodes. And then one of the hosts of the show who was pretty much running it, his wife had baby number 4 and went through some postpartum and the show just died.
Yeah,
So
shows are fragile.
Yeah, I would say there's probably around 50 episodes of that show, and he did keep it online. I have gone back and listened to some of them because some of the best guests that I casted for that show, I've now had on my own show. But
nice.
That one just folded.
And you've had some, right, Freddie? I mean, you have 2 that are current, but do you have any zombie podcasts from the past? Aside from the radio one, like did you after radio?
Also clients that I've helped, and then their show just ends.
I've got a client show that ended up being a zombie. It just happened.
Clients are a different thing because I think a lot of people that want podcasts have maybe 3 in them, maybe 3 episodes.
They underestimate it.
Well, yeah, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I think a lot of them just want to be on a mic. Okay, check. They want to tell their story. Check.
Yep.
And they want to sell something. Check. Well, that's like 3 episodes max. Like we can get that done in 3 episodes, and then we could chop it into like 100 clips, and you could share it for the next year. I mean, I think that's what I think a lot of corporate people do, and they think, oh, we should have a podcast too. What they really want is just want their voice out there, and that's fair. So, because I'm kind of disturbed with the term of not zombie podcasts, but the idea that they are. What the fuck is the term I'm thinking of? Podfading.
Podfade, yeah.
Podfade, I think that's like you're getting burnt out. I think is what that is.
Yeah, a lot of people imply that if you stop, that you've inherently pod faded. And I'm like, well, no, it's not radio. We're not supposed to go forever. Like, I mean, it's not radio. Like, oh, something must have happened if you quit. I'm like, well, no, that was the end of my book. Like, it was only 10 chapters of the book, and I finished my whole podcast on my book. Or, you know what I mean? I think most podcasts and most new podcasters should accept it. You know, plan a start, middle, and finish to your show. If it's a 10-year thing, well, plan that. But if it's just a 1-year thing, that's cool too. But there's a weird pressure on a lot of people to just, oh, yeah, you quit? Well, quit what? I like petting the cat? Like, well, I can't pet it forever, every day, all the time. The cat will come back.
Well, also another thing that I want to bring up is like, I feel like in the beginning, when you're planning out your show or you have an idea of the direction you want to go, you're like, oh, I have to have a day that I publish, a time that I publish. Like, people have to know that I'm on Monday. To be honest, like, there's holidays, there's birthdays, there's summer breaks, and I have really loosened up on that. In the beginning, I was like 3 shows a week, and then I started getting clients, and it was like 2 shows a week. Then it was like, in order to really market a show well, 1 show a week. And then I was like, what if somebody has like 6 years anniversary of something that they're celebrating, or a book coming out, or an event that's coming out, and I want to air it around that? I'm like, you know what? I don't have a Joe Rogan size audience where I have to air every week at the same time. If you have a live show where people are participating and they know that you're 9 a.m. every Monday, and if you want to be a part of the live chat, that's when you have to be on, cool. But if you're just releasing your own show, your solo episode or an interview, I personally think there's some wiggle room around that. And I think that podcasters that experience this pod fade, or because they put this unnecessary pressure on themselves, myself included,
take the fun out
where that's why I batch record, where I've got 3 to 4 months of content where, and I don't even air those in order. Like, if one guest is better than another guest, they're coming first.
Yeah, I do the same. Well, I watched a documentary on Attenborough, David Attenborough. Is that his name? The documentarian? I watched a documentary on the documentarian.
That's meta. Yeah.
Right.
It's a very 2025 thing for you to say.
Yeah, I didn't realize how he made movies. He just looks at the footage effectively and just starts talking. And then when he's done with that scene, he'll just like, okay, that's set. And I'm like, there's like not really storyboarding or scripting. He doesn't like pre-look at the footage and think of what he's going to say. He's just like, I'm not even going to do an impression. But that is all like almost ad-libbing on the fly. I'm like, whoa, that's really cool. So my thought on the timeliness, on like being present. Remember we were talking about being present versus being on schedule. I found it cool. As long as I can get like an hour or 2 recorded with me and somebody else at some point in the week, I can chop that up into enough episodes like 4 or 5 minute segments, really bits that people will think I'm always around. And the cool thing is, I chop it right where I think the conversation ends, which means people listen to the end because they expect it to go longer. So the stats end up like in Apple and everything. The listen rate's great because they're like and they teach you in golf, you should putt past the hole, like, because it would suck if you didn't actually make it to the hole. Same thing with podcasting. Just cut them off short. Like I thought, like the shaving a haircut. Leave off the last note. Knock like that around somebody and leave off the last note. And see how long it takes them to fucking drive themselves crazy and add it. So by cutting people off mid-sentence in the middle of a podcast, it might be maddening, but the next thing to know, they've started my next episode. And since they're only 5-6 minutes long, pretty simple. And I only put up stuff that it sounds interesting. I literally, like our conversation the other day, Reena, I play on the box while I'm designing some stuff. And if I'm laughing, it's awesome. If I'm looking for the fast forward button, well, that's not going to make it in. It's pretty organic that way. So are we going to do an event now based around zombies?
Yeah.
It is at a funeral museum.
It is at the National Museum of Funeral History, and it is zombie themed.
Can we do ghosts too? Can you consider adding ghost as a sidekick?
Hey, you know what? I am leaving open. I'm leaving open the possibility that people who come to SpekeFest, Night of the Living Pod, will be dressing up in costume. I have left that open.
What kind of costumes
people
do
are
you
welcome
think?
to dress up?
Like zombies, I hope a lot.
Yeah,
but any
torn and tattered clothing, a little makeup here and there.
I've got to find a special effects makeup artist. I want to show up like with blood dripping out of my mouth.
Y'all both in the Houston metro, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so there you go, people out there. If you know any good special effects makeup artists, there's going to be a cool speaking event based around podcasts and zombies in October. What's next, dude? What's the next step? Like, how do you plan an event so much? You get people involved, talking about it, build some hype. Do you have a location? Do you have to like figure out how to sell tickets? You're going to do the online thing and all that. What's up with that?
Yeah, so the National Museum of Funeral History is the host of the event, so they're the presenting sponsor as well. Shout out to Genevieve. She's got a podcast. She is a client. Their show is The Final Curtain Never Closes.
Nice.
And so it's a lot of fun to listen to. And so, yeah, tickets are on sale through their website, and they're, like I said, they're hosting it, and it's just going to be unlike any other podcast event that has ever existed.
It sounds like a fun seasonal event too. Even if people weren't into one or the other, a lot of people are into just seasonal events.
And it's around Halloween.
It's around Halloween, and you know they do events throughout the year. They have like see down here in Houston, we have this thing called the Houston Nutcracker Ballet Market, and it's like Christmas on crack. And like you go and it's anything holiday season, food, decor, clothes, presents for everybody. If you just want to go and get shit-faced hammered, you can do that as well. And the Funeral History Museum has like a Halloween version of that, but at the museum, and it's Halloween, and it's everything pumpkins and goblins and monsters, and again, food, decor, clothing.
Their clothing is crazy. Like I just got my husband a shirt. It was like, I've used up all my sick days, so I'm calling in dead. I love that shirt. And then I got myself one that's like, I see no reason to act my age. I mean, so cute. Their schlock is really creative. I hope, is the gift shop going to be open during the event?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
They had such cool things. I mean, skeletons are always trendy. So they've just got like a lot of like skeletons and coffins and earrings.
How did you connect with this museum, and have you been to it?
I went for my first time with Freddy. I wanted to see where the thing was going to be at.
Yeah,
so
no, I'm fascinated. What's in it? Like, what kind of stuff do they have in like history of coffins, or like I'm curious.
My favorite thing that I saw was like, I mean, a couple things, but like they had like the history of, you know, different pop culture people that had died. That was
like
super
popular
interesting.
Deaths kind of thing.
Yeah, and they had like a bunch of different people who have died at the age of 27. Like they had a whole wall of people that had died early.
That's a curse, right? Right.
And then what was also interesting is like the history of like how Jewish people bury people, or Catholic people bury people, or Mexican people bury people. So I didn't know any of those. Like,
oh yeah. No, that is interesting because we're kind of single-minded. We're just used to however our families did it. But
Right.
even in America, there's families.
How did your people go?
Yeah, there's some documentary I was watching about some hillbillies that bury the old Uncle Tom in the fucking front yard.
Right? Like I grew up in Kentucky. Like,
oh yeah, I think that's where they're from.
Couple
like
blocks,
that's totally legal.
A couple blocks from me, there's this bully girl that used to pick on me, and behind her, there was literally people buried in her backyard. I was like creeped out to go anywhere near her. Yeah, I'm like, did you do that? Like,
well, and every time I see, if I think of an example that has a political person, and it sounds like it's politics. It's not politics, but from what I heard, if you have your deceased buried on your property legally, which is legal, you can get a permit and do it. This is now kind of like a, what do you call it, cemetery. So you don't pay taxes there. You don't pay taxes on the cemetery. This is apparently why Donald Trump had one of his ex-wives buried, or his mom or something, buried on a golf course in Scotland or some shit. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. I got to dig into it more. I'm fast and loose with facts, but when I dug into it originally, I'm like, oh, that has to be. Yeah, we're gonna call the show First Best Guess, but you know, I think.
oh my God.
I started looking into it enough. I got to the quicksand on the bottom. Like, well, that could be a thing. So yeah, apparently in some places, the area where you bury people counts as a cemetery. Cemetery gets a tax write-off. And apparently, if you bury them on a golf course, the whole golf course is now the cemetery, and that's a tax write-off. Don't quote me on that. I didn't say it. So,
Wow.
So yes.
Freddie also has another like tie to the funeral industry, though. Like,
No way.
your wife does that. She sells spaces, right?
Yeah, she's a funeral counselor. Yeah.
Is that the connective tissue, or was it the other podcasting gal? No, Reena's laughing like I'm going to set up a punchline. No, I'm just wondering like how you, as a speaker and a podcaster, connected with the funeral museum in a way that's so connected you're going to do an event there. In other words, like, did you just show up on a day, let's go to the museum, or is it your wife said, no, that's perfect, or the other gal who works there said, we'll do it? Well, like, how'd that come about?
Well, okay, so going back to my previous radio career, I had been voluntold to take over the Sunday morning PSA show, public affairs show.
Nice.
And so as a top 40 radio DJ hosting a midday show, we're taught less is more. You shut your mouth. People only want to hear Justin Bieber and Maroon 5, so no one wants to hear you talking about what you think is funny.
Oh, tell us the time and if there's some traffic, and get back to the music.
Time and traffic and weather together at 5 after the hour, 1:55. Yeah, whatever. So imagine when you're voluntold to take over a show that is 30 minutes long, and each of the 3 segments is 8 minutes. It's like a lot of time to fill for someone who's not used to talking a lot.
Yeah, you've been trained to shut up.
And trained to shut up,
Yeah.
right. So I had eventually gotten used to hosting the show and the format, and then it got to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm out of guests, so what do I do? Well, if you're in the 4th largest city in the country, there should be no shortage of guests. So I went on this website called Google and started looking up nonprofits.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the National Museum of Funeral History came up, and so I just went to their website. I'm like, wow, this is a place that's in Houston, and I had no idea. And so I just filled out their little online form, and their PR person hit me back, and you'd have thought that I'd given them a Porsche, because they're like, we'd love to be featured on KRBE. Wow. I'm like, all right. And so we had been friends ever since. That was in late 2015. So yeah, Genevieve and I we've known each other for obviously 10 years. Mm-hmm. And I had her on my Sunday morning show. And then when I branched out and did my own thing, she's like, anything to support a friend. And so they became a client of mine, and I produced their podcast. And then I came to them with this crazy idea to have a podcast event at their museum. And she's like, okay. And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Was it that easy?
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting because, without sounding cliche, everybody dies. Everybody dies. So to pretend we don't, I was talking about this thing called the art of Swedish death cleaning, which is where apparently the Swedes start talking about this stuff early in life. And the idea of death cleaning is the elder person in the family is constantly giving everything away as they're nearing the end of life, because they don't want to burden their family with what's left. I found that was fascinating. But the fact that we don't really talk about funerals in America, about how even a lot of people, if you ask your mom or dad or your kids, or they don't want to talk about how do you want to die? Not die. I'm sorry. How do you want to be remembered? Like, what do you want? A funeral? Do you want to be cremated? Do you want to be buried? Put in all the things. Nobody really talks about that. I wonder why. I mean, I don't wonder why. I guess I just wonder why death is so dark to us. I don't wonder. Clearly, it's dark, and that's why we don't talk to it. But I wonder why it's so dark to us, where it's just a natural thing.
It is a thing of the West, and from what I've gathered, and I'm fascinated with death, mm-hmm. and this is what makes Genevieve a great host, is that she has always been fascinated with death, and she'll tell you, you'll hear in her episodes when she talks about how from a young age, there's a particular episode with Haley Campbell, who wrote a book called All the Living and All the Dead. One of the best books I've ever read, and it's about death. And so it talks about how people die, I think, every whatever amount of seconds.
Yeah.
Like there's someone like literally dozens of people died just from the moment we started this conversation.
Rolling off the cliff.
And the world just keeps going on. But it's something that is, I think it's unique to the West. Asian cultures and other cultures outside of, the U.S. and Europe see death in a whole different way than what we do and then how we're raised. And I don't really have a good answer other than we're just bad at talking about it.
Do you care if I start recording video real quick?
Go ahead.
It's getting juicy.
I was thinking maybe we should have like Swedish death cleaning grab bags. Like we should have giveaway bags of things that you're like ready to part with. That could be funny.
I wanted to do a podcast while we're on macabre topics. Like top 3 songs you want played at your funeral. And every episode, the guest would come on and tell me what 3 songs do you want played at your funeral. Of course, music-related podcasts with the music industry fucking things up as usual. We can't play music still. 20 years into podcasting, and we still have to not play music. But I like the idea of like asking, so, do you guys know, do you want music at your funerals? Do you want funerals? Like the two of you?
Yeah.
You do, Freddie? You want a funeral?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are your songs, Reena?
I was just thinking about Tori Amos, I Crucify Myself, which is so inappropriate for a nice Jewish girl. But yeah, I love that song.
Okay, what's that song about?
I'd have to look up the lyrics. I'm not going to sing right now, but yeah, it's a juicy one.
Okay.
I love all of Tori Amos, like from the 80s.
It's a neat opportunity, right? Like to force.
I think she does another one called Ghost too.
Yeah, to force your friends to just sit here and listen to a song real quick. You know, it's the only time in your life you'll have to force all your people like, no, listen to this song. This is a song I like. It doesn't even, it could be like the fucking Highway to Hell or some shit. I mean, if you like rock, most of the crowd would probably be like, huh? But it became kind of a more interesting exercise. And I like the idea of macabre topics in podcasting.
Now I'm thinking about the words to crucify. I think it's kind of just like, you know, I kind of beat my own self up, you know, like every day. I don't need that from you. Like,
that's true for most of us. Yeah.
Okay.
you're right.
Gotcha.
Like,
Gotcha. Like it's more like from a self-loathing standpoint. I don't need you to hate me. I hate myself.
Yeah.
Nothing you say can be anything worse than what I tell myself when I wake up and look at myself in the mirror. So go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
pretty much.
No, exactly. That's the era right there. It was the chick version of the grunge fuck everything.
Yeah.
Lilith Fair was the opposite of Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and all that.
I went to Lilith Fair.
It's the girl version.
My condolences.
So
I don't even know what that
it's
means.
kind of we're coming in an interesting way. We're kind of being inclusive and coming full circle in a weird way. So we're talking about macabre topics for podcasts, and then it also comes around to the idea of a zombie podcast, which goes from less about true death to interpreted fantasy death, let's call it, and ghost podcasts, and the idea that you're holding the zombie podcast themed event at a funeral home, I think is fantastic. So it really bring it all home. But I think more importantly, it will start the conversation between now and then with podcasters about what a zombie podcast is and with listeners and podcasters alike as to the value of those. Because I think when the mainstream media or the podcast gurus call it podfading and, you know, label things zombie podcasts, probably not in such a kind way, I think that diminishes the podcast that we've already created. It's kind of like we don't call books zombie books. It's an old book. Every book in the fucking bookstore, in the library, those would be zombie books. They're not being published anymore. They already had their run. So in that sense, I just don't like, you know, it's one of those things where I can call myself that. I'm a zombie. I can call myself that. Like any other culture, you know, if I'm Aspie, I could call myself names. If I'm brown skin, I can call myself the N-word. I'm not even trying to be funny. It's like, I think I did a whole episode on slurs being words that you have to earn. Like, I can't call Reena a bitch. She can call herself a bitch, right? Jokingly or not jokingly. And I can call myself crazy. But if someone else does, that would be offensive. So I think the same thing with zombies. I think as podcasters, we have to control and own that term. We can't let people diminish it or try to deride it, making it think like zombies are bad. Because I think in this case, and the way you're bringing it up, and the research I did, zombies is actually pretty cool. It's just content that's already been created. And just because we've moved on to another podcast or we have a day job now or more kids or whatever, it doesn't mean that that original set of shows we did is less valuable or less than, because I think what it might be setting us up for is to be paid less than from Spotify and YouTube and everybody else that's using that content. So if they start to define zombies as over 6 months old, we're not paying you shit, then the term really kind of has a negative connotation. So I think bringing it up, having fun with it in October and bringing up just the whole, the more serious, did I just bring the whole show down to a downer level? Because I'm trying to think more philosophically about being labeled by others. You know what I mean? Like we can call ourselves that, but when others start to call it zombie in a bad light, what do you guys think about that?
Go ahead, Reena.
Well, I was thinking about the cool kind of twists that you've done in marketing the event and how you've used zombies as like tied into the theme of the event. Like he has created these insanely cool
Make zombies
graphics.
cool again. Yeah.
Yeah, where everybody wants to be a zombie by the graphics that he's creating. And I think everybody wants to check out this zombie event because it's like, I've never seen zombies paired with podcasts. It's, even though they have been called that, I really think that that's so genius and so creative. Like,
Yeah.
And the fact that he's like bringing, you know, parts from his zombie show because, you know, he connected with the funeral museum back in his radio days, which is now his zombie show, but he's recreating that, reviving that, and he's evolved, and this is what it's evolved to. So I think that that's just so cool. Like he's using all of his talents and all of his community and all of his graphic skills and throwing it into this event. Yeah. And he's being fearless about it. Like I just love that. That's what I'm getting.
Yeah, you got to be fearless
behind it, and that's how I want to go. Yeah, and be a part of it.
You got to be audacious to go take it back, to take back
Hell yeah,
the
take
negative
it back
stereotypes.
From zombie.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. You've seen it with I don't even want to say like we're a movement or anything, but just through the social movements of the 60s and 70s and 80s, they've taken back words and they use them again. That's what prompted me to say a slur. Like to me, somebody might think of zombie as a slur in the podcast world, but those who have earned it, those who have actually made shows that you would call a zombie, we can say that. We can call them that. We could dress up like zombies, put stickers on our laptops. Fuck you. Zombies cool. Stop saying it in a dark light. That's my thought right there, is just like bring it back. Like when I was little, I'd see the gays march through the fucking shopping malls and stuff. We're here. We're queer. Get used to it. And I'm like, I thought we're not supposed to say queer anymore. And my mom's all, just don't look at them. Anyway, but the fact that they took a word that was offensive to them and said, no, this word fits and we like it and we're fucking taking it back. I think that's appropriate in this sense. In a weird way, I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking about being overly sensitive about our content as podcasters, but I love that you brought it back and are like, we're going to own that term now. So the more we can do to help you promote that is fantastic. I love it.
Well, thank you. I am really just focused on people starting their show and not giving up. And whether you want to call it a zombie podcast or whether you want to quit your show and because you quote unquote pod faded, I just want to help as many podcasters as possible before my time is up on this spinning, shiny blue marble in this infinite universe, spinning around this flaming ball we call the sun.
Hey,
I want to help as many podcasters as I can.
Let's talk about that.
Share their stories.
Because we didn't really talk about that at all, dude. Yeah. What do you do to help podcasters? What can we, like an aspiring podcaster that might tune into this, what can you do to help them?
Well, so I've got an online course called PodQuest, and that is using storytelling techniques like think Joseph Campbell, turning your podcast listener into a hero and the pain point into a villain.
Save the cat.
And save the cat. Yes, exactly. So using storytelling techniques to start their podcast in a more deliberate, more intentional way, as opposed to, oh, well, you know what? Freddie and John and Reena are going to go to Guitar Center and buy mics and start talking. Like and we're just going to have interesting conversations with fascinating people. Yawn. I mean, it's like if you want to have that conversation and have that kind of podcast, I think that is amazing. Also, if you're starting a podcast and then expecting 1 million downloads, and then after 3 episodes, you're still shouting into an empty forest, then that's what happens. That's why so many people quit, is because they have the unrealistic expectation of, oh, well, I bought the mic and now I'm a podcaster. But recording and publishing the podcast is barely even half of the game, because you got to market yourself, you got to promote yourself. You also want to make sure that your episode doesn't sound like garbage from an audio quality standpoint. You want to make sure that, again, you are going in with a very deliberate plan about what your podcast is going to be about. And so whether it's through an online course, or whether it's through serving somebody as a client, or whether it's having somebody go to SpekeFest, there are numerous ways for my company to help somebody who wants to start a podcast, who is new to podcasting, or if they're 50 or 100 episodes in and they're starting to podfade, and they're starting to get burnt out by the thought of having a show. Well, then maybe something they listen to at this event, or something they see on my website or through one of my clients, maybe that'll get the creative juices flowing, and then they'll keep going because they're like, you know what, I'm a fucking podcast host. And maybe that was all they needed, was to just see something, hear something, and that was all it took. And now I can't hear John anymore.
Me either. But I love what you said. And I'm also curious kind of the breakdown of the event. You're doing some workshops, you have a DJ. Give us a little bit of a breakdown of how you see the event unfolding. What can people participate in?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we've got two tiers of tickets. We got GA and then we got VIP. VIP is going to get those tickets are going to get access to the keynote speeches and also the games, and then the workshops. We're going to have Reena. You're going to be hosting a workshop about nailing a killer interview. We're going to have Bruce Chamoff, who's going to talk about creating a binge-worthy show. So he's with the World Podcast Network, and so he's coming in, flying in from New York.
I'm excited to meet him in person. That is so crazy.
Too. Yeah. He's one of those guys where you jump on a video conference with him and immediately just hit it off. And there are not very many people like that. So I'm excited to meet him in person too. And I've got Genevieve from the Funeral History Museum, who's going to be delivering a keynote about the power of the niche. We got another our charity component is Crime Stoppers. So they are a local charity focused on public safety and crime prevention, obviously, is Crime Stoppers of Houston. And so they have a show called The Balanced Voice, and they're going to be talking about the power of serving as a bridge to the public. So from public officials and community officials to the listeners who are in the public. And so serving as that bridge through critical conversations about public safety and awareness and all that sort of a thing. And then Crime Stoppers is going to be a beneficiary of a portion of ticket sales. So they've got the Million for Million campaign. And so ticket sales are going to benefit Crime Stoppers in that sense. And DJ Tony Styles, you talk about the DJ. DJ Tony Styles is somebody who I worked with for years on the radio. He's a powerhouse DJ in clubs. He's also the founder of Night Nation, which is a 5K run, I believe. And afterward, it's a big ass dance party. So he's one of the big guys behind that. So he's like a serial entrepreneur, if you would. And so we're excited to have him on board, and he'll be spinning music. All of it, again, against the backdrop of the National Museum of Funeral History. And I'm excited, and I hope John gets to come.
Yeah, I'm excited for all of that. That sounds, I'm stoked for Reena speaking. I'm stoked that you have a great theme. And I'm really stoked, just happy that we're talking about these terms in a more, I don't know, just a more deep manner. Because a lot of times you just kind of get the flippant bullet point responses to terms like zombie podcast or whatever. But the fact that we're bringing them out, and I really like, I want to talk more about just what you do to help you, because I like that part. I really like the positivity. I work in the part of in a business that I help entrepreneurs get to their next step. And it sounds like you were there as well. I want to talk a little bit, this is not necessarily on topic for the event, but it is for podcasting. When we talk about niching down, into a topic or general, because there's a huge argument. I see people in all kinds of in broadcasting and in podcasting, which I would call, I guess, narrow, and other social media, like trying to be famous. Let's say, do you try to be more niche or not? And a lot of people say, oh no, but after all this, after watching this for like 20 or 30 years, it seems like the most successful people do niche down, but the niche ends up being them. It's their personality, so that they can go anywhere. And I don't think very many people are comfortable being themselves. So they are chasing niches. That's what I see a lot. I just see people chasing a niche. Is it NFTs and Bitcoin, or is it I have a podcast now, or is it now I'm a streamer, or all the things out in there that people do. But is it, you could be successful at any of those if you become successful at one of those. And you get people complain that celebrities come over and start podcasting. Well, why would they not? I mean, anything they do, it's going to get notoriety. So I don't know why we should exclude celebrities from playing with mics and stuff like that. So what are some of the commonalities you see with new people that come to you? Is there a common misconception that new people have about podcasting that you want to dispel?
I don't know that there's really a misconception other than you need 1 million followers or you need a huge following on social media. I think we've moved past having to have 500,000 followers across all the social platforms now with the TikTokification, that they call it. Gary Vaynerchuk calls it interest media now instead of social media, where if you talk about something like, I'll give you my Instagram algorithm right now, is all about old school wrestling videos, dogs, religion, and manifestation, and Alex Hormozy. And we
definitely have some Venn diagram circles overlapping there.
Yeah. So that's the algorithm. I mean, I see all kinds of trash wrestling videos, and I'm like, yes, I'm here for it. And then then there's like the occasional news story, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's bull crap. But then there's like a dog like there's a
little palate cleanse. Yeah, a little
palate cleanse. Yeah. So yeah, no, I just think that we've moved past having to have a large following. Yep. And you could have 500 downloads, and everybody, or let's say 500 downloads, and 400 of those downloads are at a retention of between 70 and 80%. And if you have a highly well-intentioned CTA within the first third, well, guess what? That means they heard your CTA, and they're most likely, if they listen 70 to 80% through, they're most likely to, buy something from you. Now, would you rather have 500 of those listeners, or would you rather the vanity metric of 5,000 downloads and you have a shit retention rate of less than 20%? And if your CTA is a third of the way through, guess how many people heard that CTA? The vast majority of them didn't.
Yep, not even reaching it. Yeah, I worked with a lot of numbers, especially. I was going over a recent agreement, and I'm trying to make the numbers understandable to somebody that doesn't understand what I'm talking about.
The math, you want to make the math.
Well, and simple math, and understandable math, and relevant math, but all of it's relevant to me. I'm like, oh, geez. So it sounds like when people then come in, they might be hesitant to start a podcast because they thought they needed a bigger crowd than they have. Is that what I'm hearing?
That would be just people in general, just being out in public from people. Oh, hey, I want to start a podcast. Okay, what's your podcast going to be about? Well, it's going to be, and literally, this is going to be about everything. Like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that.
Yeah, you could do that. Just don't expect anybody to listen to your shit unless it's your best friends.
Yeah. That's all this show is. Literally, it's me and my friends listening to my shit. Probably one or two enemies, just, recording it and downloading the MPEG file for later. But aside from that, but like to your point, I didn't start with the plan. I'm a musician. I just couldn't stop being on stage. Like, we don't do bands anymore. I'm a fucking grown up, right? I'm like, I can't go jam with my band tonight. I'm like, hey, I could buy gear here and sit at the desk and talk into a mic. Yes. So
it can come together easily, though. Like yesterday, here's an example of something crazy that happened for me. Like, I took my kid to his driving instructions. And, you know, my son, who's like my local marketing representative, told the driving school that I had a podcast. And she was like, oh, she was like, I'd love to advertise on your podcast. I was like, oh, that costs money, you know? And she was like, oh, well, what does that look like? And then I told her, and then she was like, I'd love to do that. That's less than I'm paying on Facebook. So literally it can just be small businesses that, you know, want to
That is the money.
be in front of your audience. I was like, look, I'm a mom. I've got 4 kids, you know, if you do a good job and get my kid his license, I'll tell other mommies, you know, and I've got 3 other kids that I'll send to you. If it goes well with you, I would love to speak to loving your product.
Well, the funny thing is, you could like, I could probably fool people. I won't speak for you guys, but I could probably fool people. I could probably say, yes, if you do this for me, if you give me, how much do you going to advertise on Facebook? Well, I usually spend $40 a week. I'll tell you what, for $160, you could come on my show. I'll put a big sign right there, and that podcast will be up forever.
Lifetime value, baby.
All 8 people are going to see it once, right? But they won't know that because they might have been one of the 8. Because this is that weird perception thing. Because they see the show, they assume everyone is knowing about the show. Yeah. That's a weird thing about human behavior. So the idea you need a big audience is kind of wild. What are some things that?
But not only like a big audience, but it's like, who is your ideal avatar? Like I am her ideal avatar. Like I'm a mom. I have 4 kids. All of my kids' friends are the same age, right? I'm local. I'm a woman-owned business. She's a woman-owned business. So it's kind of like appealing to those things. Oh, and her kids were on Springer. I was like, oh, this is a match made in heaven.
Oh boy.
She's a smart businesswoman for her to automatically be like, huh, yeah, I want to advertise on your show. Because she
immediately asked that.
Yeah.
And then I was like, not only will I like give you, you know, the front of my podcast, which is like prime real estate.
Right.
Like I'll help you create that ad. I will talk about my experience, my real life experience working with you because I am your client. I'll also interview you, and we could even do that in person, or we could do it remotely, and we can talk about that. Yeah.
Done. Many ways to make money podcasting.
It's true.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, Freddie, not only are your clients like going to be the venue of your event, but you're also featuring them, and, you know, you're supporting a nonprofit alongside, which is something else that you're passionate about. So I feel like you're tying in all of the things that you love and all of the people that you love into an event. I love that. That's so cool.
I have a question about money. Don't state any numbers. Just, you know, keep it discreet, whatever. But because I know radio doesn't pay very well generally. So, and I know podcasting doesn't really pay at all. But you've seemed to have managed to have built some business around podcasting. So I'm curious, are you even close to making enough money with all of your podcasting, let's call it empire now, as opposed to a regular salary in radio 15 years ago?
I will say that I was a minority in radio. I actually did quite well.
Okay, so you're near the top then, because people at the top usually have most of the money for the whole station.
I did, and that was because I was the midday guy. But I also did copywriting and production. Then like I said, I did
put
the
in 40
Sunday
hours
morning,
a week. Yeah,
Sunday I was more than that.
Yeah,
and
it sounds
working
like
at
it.
home.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean with endorsements and they called them remotes. So with the station appearances,
you get a cut of that too.
You go out to a car dealership and stand around for 2 hours and nobody goes, and it feels like highway robbery. Like, are you kidding? I just made $300 in 2 hours. Yeah. So you get enough of those, and throughout the year, you're making what a 16-year-old would be making all year long at working hours at McDonald's.
Yep.
So yeah, no, there were definitely different ways. It's funny, you had to think like an entrepreneur and act like an entrepreneur while working for a corporate conglomerate.
Under the constraints of the man. Yeah.
Yeah, the man. Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, listen, man, my rates are up on my website. I'm not one that's like really precious about, call me for how much this is. I'm like, this is what it is, and
figured out a system.
And if people want if people want to work with me, then they want to work with me. If people go to my website and they're like, yeah, fuck this guy, I'm just going to go to Fiverr. Okay, cool. Because there are things that the guy on Fiverr can do that I won't do, like be cheap. And there are things that I can do.
Whatever you just said there, I'm going to beep it out regardless. It's unnecessarily foul.
And there are things that I can do that the guy on Fiverr can't. And I edit with, I know how to edit on Pro Tools. I have a sound chain that is pretty badass. And so I get in there and I zoom in and I edit audio like a 3-year-old plays with puzzles, and I can get in my flow state, and it's a lot of fun, which is going to be one of the hardest things about scaling this bad boy, because my business will end up growing, is that I can't grow and expect to edit every single episode, but I also like editing audio. So it's going to be something that you have to give up. And so I'll eventually hire somebody, and 5 years down the line, I'll have multiple somebodies. So yeah.
That's fantastic. I love it growing like this. A straight up, it seems like the event might just become the business, like the Podfest guys or podcast movement. I'm sure a handful of those people, that's probably all they do now.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Do you love it? I mean, do you love that kind of thing enough to keep doing it? I don't want you to event fade or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I'm not tired of the event. I don't think I will be. And part of planning the event is, what I like to do every year is put myself out of business. And it was something that I would do when I was on the radio, working for a giant corporation, was put myself out of a job. So think like, when I was on the radio, think like a corporate bean counter. Why would you fire Freddy? And then figure out what I can do to make myself unfuckwithable, so to speak.
Irreplaceable.
Yeah, irreplaceable. Yeah. And let's be honest, nobody's irreplaceable. But how can I create that illusion that these guys need me? Of course, at the end of 2021, I was offered a 20% pay cut. So then I was like, fuck that. And then I left. Yeah. Amicably. I don't burn bridges. Amicably, but I still was like, no, thank you. But to answer your question, I wanted to do the event because I could see AI developing in such a way with such rapidness that there would be little to no more need for what my company does. So it's a way of future-proofing my business and thus my livelihood. And if and when SpekeFest starts to improve and get bigger and bigger, then I don't know. Maybe I start to divest myself away from production, because like in a weird, wild, technologically advanced audio and video editing production world, I can absolutely see AI being like voice activated editing. So it'll be like, John goes into a Adobe or whatever program, and I don't have a crystal ball. I'm just saying that I can see this. John goes into a session and starts voice commanding where to take out. So you're going to edit Reena's part from 22:04 to 23:15, where she coughs for a minute straight. You're going to go into Freddy's part because I hate his fucking guts.
I don't
and
even
delete the last 5 minutes.
I think we'll jump the whole thing, dude. I think it'll just do it, and you'll listen to it and like, huh, yeah, actually, that's better than I would have edited. We won't even have to tell it to go to the endpoints or the SMPTE code or anything. It'll just be like, give it a stab at this interview right here, and then it'll come back. It's like, you mean I can move to the next interview and I'm done? Yeah, fuck yeah. I think people will for sure do that in the next year. I mean, that shit's moving fast.
I can see that happening. And so SpekeFest is not just something that is going to be fun for me, but also, like I said, a way of future-proofing myself. And because AI will never replace relationships, although I have a pretty great relationship with my Perplexity chatbot.
Different. Yeah, it's a different relationship, but it won't replace in-person
right.
humanity.
Oh, never.
But you brought up a really interesting thing about the AI, and I think you guys everybody here with the Zombie Podcast may actually be sitting on the gold mine of all humanity. You have pre-AI content. Pre-AI content will be imagine like having the original scrolls of the Bible, of the Torah, imagine having the original, unadulterated, nobody fuck with this. Those are the actual words out of God's mouth. Not saying we're God, but imagine if we had the words from God's mouth right now. This is what Zombie Podcast will be. Anything before AI starts scooping up stuff and using it for answers for new people stuff and just this whole rubbish pile of recycling, man, that's I think super critical. I didn't even think about it until you just mentioned the AI bit, but because I'm always searching for hard copy media, and where do we find this shit that we're going to hide from a nuclear catastrophe? Because they used to carve things in stone. They probably learned that because the generations before them had all of their digital shit melted, 2 million years ago. So they're like, we need to carve it in stone this time, so when we get wiped out, they could fucking find it. But look at us. We're putting it on plastic that's just going to melt away. All of our fucking silicone's going to melt away and blast. We're going to have no humanity left. Right. You're going to have to bring that with you, dude. Wherever you go, as long as you're alive, you will have a little bit of humanity left. I was thinking of...
Bury me with the chips.
Dude, and honestly, propose this idea to somebody. I think somebody should get together with some of the best zombie podcasts, grab them, if necessary, master them, burn fucking CDs with nice artwork and hand them out the door. Here's the best 2007 horror show podcast, 3 episodes, and just listen to people's old episodes like, oh, well, podcasts used to be dope back in the day. It's kind of like the way Theater of the Mind, Green Hornet, and all that stuff from the black and white radio days. How do you like that, black and white radio days? But back in those days where they really got into your head, I think a lot of the earlier zombie podcasts would be like that. It would be cool to just jump mediums. It's like, fuck it, we're not stream only. You could have us on a CD for the end of the world.
Reena, when we were at the museum, you remember I had told you about the dead internet theory? It was something like 2016 was the last time that there was human touch or actual human connection. I forgot what exactly it is, but you touched on that, John, was with the pre-internet or the pre-AI media. Yeah.
Something there, man. There's something there. I think about this a lot because I don't get rid of stuff, and then I'm not like a hoarder, but I have stuff, and I'm like, I've had that so long, it's now important. I have in my garage, in my fridge I found the other day.
Oh, God.
Here's how little I drink. I found 2 pre-woke bottles of Bud Light, unopened.
Pre-woke.
Way before all the calamity about transgender occurred. That's how old those bottles are. I'm going to go on eBay, pre-woke Bud Light bottles. See if I get some MAGA folks to give me money.
Hey, and I bet you've got the expiration date on those.
You can see them
too.
Yeah, they're printed right on them, and the artwork
they're authenticated.
It's totally certified, and they're probably drinkable. I don't know. I don't really drink beer. I just got them for some friends.
And they might grow some hair on your chest.
Maybe. Yeah. Shit. That may be my head.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But anyway, so when I think of old things that become valuable just because they sat around too long, I often think of those 2 pre-woke Bud Lights in my fridge. But now I'm thinking a lot more about these digital things because a zombie podcast is one step from being physical media, which is really a lot more savable. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm going to stop the video because it takes a second maybe to upload anybody's extra parts. I just realized we were only on for half an hour. We've kept you for over an hour, Freddie, so I apologize.
No, it's all good, man.
This is
fun.
I usually
good content.
I try to have fun. That's the thing. I'm here for fun today. And
I blocked off my afternoon for you too. I really appreciate the invite. Yeah.
Sweet. How was my studio session? I guess it was okay. Sure. Good video, easy to use. Sure. You guys.
It worked today.
Yeah, that should be a choice. It worked today. You know what I think should be a choice too? On Tinder, they got religion, right? And then they got cannabis. They got all these different choices. Under the religion one, you get choices. Muslim, Jewish, Christian, other, atheist, agnostic. On cannabis, you get yes, never. I'm like, why isn't that the choice for religion? It should be yes or never. And on the cannabis, it should say indica, fucking sativa, whatever, you know what I'm saying? But,
Hydro.
yeah, but it's very, very offensive.
Will knock you out, Dro.
Right. When I scroll through some chick's thing, I'm like, pretty good. And then on cannabis, it's all never. And I'm like, fuck off. What? I didn't say that about your God. Sorry, God. I am religious. That's the thing. Well, I was raised Christian, so when I say these things, I have to, pray and ask for forgiveness later. Anyway.
Do you fear hell?
No way. Jesus has me. Like, God's got me wherever I am.
You're good with Jesus, so you're good.
I'm not sure the relationship about Jesus bit, honestly. I just believe in God above. There's too much stuff about the story afterward. I'm like, who? I don't want to offend any religions, basically. You're not
me.
No, I mean, I'm down with any religion's explanation of that relationship. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's cool. But I definitely believe in the highest power above that. I'm like,
checks out. Yeah, there's just too much. There's too much evidence. There's too much evidence that exists for it to be mere coincidence.
Well, and explain it another way. Like, how we invented zero in math? Because we needed something there. It's like if we invented God because we need it there, because there's no other fucking explanation, then let's believe in zero. Let's believe in God. Like, why not? It's the placeholder that keeps us all together, whether you want to call it God or the active principle. I've heard some people call it the active principle. Like, they don't want to touch it, but I'm like, okay, it's the active principle, whatever you want to call it. God.
Do you mean they say the active principle because they don't want to use the word God?
They believe a different structure, but they believe in a higher principle.
Like there's something beyond us.
For sure. Yeah. A containment of sorts, yeah. So I'm like, I like active principle, but, I'm also into brevity, and God is only one nice syllable. So I'm like, just say God. Just don't be a pussy.
One
say
nice
God.
syllable, 3 letters.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a Catholic, and I remember being at Mass one day. This was years ago. And the priest was talking, Sparrow, I'm going to feed your little ass in a little bit, man. Fuck. You can afford to miss a meal or 5. Jeez. So the priest was talking about, and this is like this is a paraphrasing of of his thing. This is years ago, but he talks about how the story of a Nazi officer who was a Nazi and obviously was a bad guy, and he's on his deathbed. And he asked God for forgiveness, and the priest forgave him. And he talked about how he was so mad because, here he's young, and he's, being reprimanded for doing, for I guess being bad. And here's this guy who lived his entire life as a, he like, however old he was when he was a Nazi, but all those years, and then all of a sudden, because he's about to die, he asks for forgiveness, and then he's forgiven in the fucking 11th hour. Like, how is that fair? Like, the 3 of us? So what does that say for the 3 of us? Because we're not Nazis.
No way. I'm banking on that. I'm going to pull that. I'm pulling that out when I get there. I'm like, no, look. This motherfucker, I want to speak to the manager.
Like,
you let Mengele in, or not Mengele, whoever the fuck these guys are. But I get your point. And Catholics are very forgiving. Not just forgiving, but systematically forgiving. All my Catholic friends back when I was young, they all fucked each other. They were married, and they would fuck each other's couples. And I'd be at a party and some shit.
Swingers, okay?
Yeah, I'm like, but on Sunday, it just all washed away. And then if you didn't hear any new stories, I guess it's like, well, I guess it's over. And then like, 3 months later, it's like, oh, she's fucking him. Like, and then it would go away. They go to church. And I asked my friend, like, what's going on? Like, isn't this against your religion? And he just basically said, well, our sins are forgiven if we just go ask. And I'm like, Baptists don't get that. I'm like, you guys got better churches and nicer glass and cooler choirs. I was drawn to the Baptists because we had drums. Y'all Catholics don't have drums, so what am I gonna do? I needed a little beat in my Jesus.
What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on forgiveness? Like, what do they teach you, Reena?
I was just thinking about the fact that before if you have questions about decisions that you want to make in your life, you can call and either ask a rabbi or ask the rabbi's wife if you don't want to ask the rabbi. And I had lots of questions since I was new to like becoming more religious. Like I didn't grow up so religious, and I was asking her things that she was like, I need to ask another rabbi about that. Like, you know?
That's good though. That's a good theologian, you know, because
like
they're
one
not
question I
perfect.
had was
Yeah,
like,
having
if a trans comes in and, you know, like in the Orthodox, like it's men and women, like what side do they go to?
Mm-hmm.
She was like,
how
I'll
would
get
you
back to
know?
you. But it's what they were born as. Yeah.
Yeah, and how would you know? This is part of the thing my son and I talk about a lot. Like a lot of the people, say we watch Lego Master, right, or something like that, and invariably someone's going to come up with their fucking little shtick. Like we'll spot them before they even introduce them. Like, oh, that's going to be the lesbian couple. That's going to be the mother and son couple. There's the black couple or the black brother and sister. I mean, they just fucking Power Rangered the whole thing. And God. And sure enough, they open up with, well, we're lesbians. I'm like, what? Nobody asked. I'm not disparaging lesbians or any group like that, but I'm like, why lead with your social thing, your badge? You know, why wave with that flag instead of
The agenda.
Is it? Yeah, but I don't know that people that adopt it think of it as agenda now because they've been kind of programmed over the 20, 30 years now. They just do it. Like, oh, I'm John, and I have mental health issues, and I stubbed my toe, and my dad hates me. And that become the theme for the whole Lego Master, for example. Like every time they show them, they're like, oh, sorry about your dad, John. And it's too bad about the thing, or whatever. So every time they interview the black people, like, hey, it's hey, bro. And I'm like, really? It's just so unnerving to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I also feel like there's kind of like a rabbi with like different, you know, expertise. So there's like a rabbi that focuses on kosher, a rabbi that
like a
focuses
specialist.
on like, you
Marriage
know, marital
problems.
relationships. Yeah, like there's.
Well,
rabbis
did you
that-
say what your thoughts were on forgiveness? Like, do people deserve a
Forgiveness
chance
is
to
tough
be
for
forgiven?
me. I mean, there's probably like the right way. Like, you know, if you don't forgive, how can you expect God to be forgiving towards you? I've heard that again and again. But also, like, if somebody does you wrong, like, it's so hard not to be guarded.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And I think it's fair to put space between that and all that. But overall, I think everyone deserves at least a chance at redemption. They don't have to take the path, but they have to because imagine if we just shut everybody that wronged us out, no path to redemption. There's
But
no.
what about murderers?
They have to have a path to redemption, a path. I'm not saying it's an easy path, but it's like whatever we decide you have to do to redeem yourself. You're not getting out of prison. If you mean like that, we might not.
I think in biblical days, like you were kind of like removed from
A scapegoat.
society.
Yeah, you just put on the goat and ran out of town. Literally. I think they cursed the goat. I think that's what they did. They cursed the goat and then ran it out of town, and then the goat took all the sins of that town with it. Yeah, that's why the scapegoat.
There is something in Judaism too, where like, you know, around I think like the high holidays, like they swing a chicken over, you know.
That's better than Benny Hinn swinging his blazer across the crowd, whipping all them people at church, knocking them down. You know
And
Benny Hinn?
it's supposed to like take your sins. I mean, there's all kinds of things. You drop your
Hallelujah.
sins in the water, and you know, you put your challah in the water and watch it go away, and there's your sins.
I think it has to be.
The bread takes your sins. The chicken takes your sins.
Think of
I'm
the
like,
alternative, right? If we did not offer people a path to redemption and we just said, sorry, you're fucked forever, then we've left half society fucked forever. And then what are they going to do? If it's hopeless that they're ever going to get back in our good graces, why not just go be worse? Why not, just be an enemy forever? So that's why I say I think it's important at least to take a high road and offer a path. It's like, if you want redemption to me as another fellow human, I need you to do X, Y, and Z. It's not just apologize, just change your ways. You're going to have to start doing this to the point of almost manipulating them. But if that's what you're requiring for some fucking crazy person or maniacal criminal to be back in your life or in the society, that's fair. I'm just saying offer them a path. It doesn't have to be an easy path, but I think just cutting people straight off and saying, nope, no more, never, ever, I'm not even looking that direction again, I think that's where we're at in society now.
That's what wokeism is. It's a religion that doesn't offer forgiveness.
Yeah, it's the reflective of the other, of what racism was back in the whatever, up until the 60s or 70s when it became, we got hippies around. Racism was we don't accept anything ever. Now, wokeism has almost become like a thought police, like we don't accept you saying the wrong words ever.
And we're gonna have you fired if you own a business. We're gonna tell all of your clients, and if you're a student and you're trying to get into an Ivy League school, we're gonna go through all your Facebook posts, and we're gonna make sure that you do not get accepted.
Yeah.
No matter where you ranked, you could be valedictorian if you made one error on X, or if you had one Instagram post. God help you, because you're never going to get in our school.
Well, if you talked about the wrong thing, or even to a person who talked about the wrong thing.
Yep.
What if one of us talked about Jordan Peterson, which is a weird case because he's, again, once more removed, right? But what if we talked about it? Just purely, I applied for a podcasting gig once at NPR, local NPR station or something like that. And I think I remember them asking, what were your favorite podcasts? And at the time, one of mine was that brain surgeon guy. I don't know if you guys know who he is.
Huberman.
No, before that. I like Huberman a lot. God. Anyway, he got thrown over into the kind of the alt-right pile because he's a scientist and he believes in facts and science. And I think they're like, nope, buddy, you're not coming here to PBS. Fuckers.
Oh, you mean state-run media?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's essentially what it is.
Sorry, ran out of water. I'm chewing ice. All right. Well, this is a good talk, dude.
Yeah.
What about, sorry. How often do you do your podcast?
So the podcast about podcasting is twice a week, and I try and have a good bank of between 4 and 8 in advance. So I'm coming up on having to replenish the stockpile, and then I'll take a little. I'm thinking about trying to keep the podcast about podcasting going, because I think I can do it if I execute enough solo episodes that are less than 15 minutes, and then have the occasional interview.
There's a lot of people giving up in that realm too, like the guys who. The guys who've been around like 10, 15 years, a lot of them are starting to fade. They're getting disillusioned because videos coming around and they're breaking up. So I think there's always room for at least one. Like Dave Jackson has a great show, but if you're tired of hearing his tone.
Is that the school of podcasting or something?
Yeah, it's good. I listen to it. I mean, a lot of people listen to it, but if I listen to AC/DC too, but I can only hear it so long because, you get sick of the same timbre and the same tone. No offense to the person talking, but there's always room for a good educational source like that. What do you typically talk about on your show? Like what level of podcasting about podcasting are you into? Full on like people right off the street, I want to start one, to people that are, figuring out how to grow and look at their stats better and work their
It's
metrics?
for new and aspiring hosts. Yeah. So I've got, like, today is how to be the best podcast guest ever. And so it's for people who want to be a podcast guest who have never really been, and they want to, maybe they've pitched John to be on their show and the pitch was shit. And so I actually used a real world example for somebody who tried to get on my Houston show, and I went through all the red flags, and I didn't disparage them. I just went through all the red flags from that pitch. Like, okay, well, if anybody knew anything about Cruise Through HTX, they would know that season 2 was already finished. They would also know that season 2 was about health and wellness and not about nonprofit innovation. They would also know that people see right through the whole, I just listened, Reena, to your last episode of Better Call Daddy, and the way that you and your father communicate is just so amazing. Like, that's the other red flag. And so I went through all of the different red flags in that one pitch. So it was like a tutorial on how not
That's
to
so
pitch.
good.
It was like how not. And so I obviously did not read the names of I didn't read the name of the PR firm or the guy who
You're so
probably
kind.
had no idea.
You're
The guy
so
had
kind.
no idea he was going to get on my show, but I didn't. Yeah. So yeah.
I was about to read some earlier. I just got two. I'm like, what do we do with all these, Reena? Do you want to have this person on the show?
We should just take a couple of them,
Just
like
read 'em,
completely blind, not at all have an agenda and just see what they come with. Like actually ask them all their speaking points that they pre-send you and listen to all their canned answers. Let's do that. That would be so fun.
I'm down.
But are they from PR
Yes.
reps or?
Yeah.
Also,
We should take
guests
2
wouldn't have
PR
any
pitches,
idea.
like horrible ones, the worst ones that actually wrote, Reena, I loved your last episode with Thomas. You know, from the way that you talked about Thomas, I think that this person who talks
Should
about
we pick,
divorce,
like,
I'm
the
like,
widest-
he was a burn victim.
Should we pick the biggest like mismatch or what? Because I get so many. I'm like, that's
Oh my
not
God,
even
can we
close.
do
Some are
that?
pretty close. I'm like, oh, that sounds actually kind of fun.
We should do like the one big mismatch and then one that's just like, okay, here's my entire story. These are the 10 points I'm going to hit. And let's see if they actually hit the 10 points
For sure.
that they pitch.
Okay, I will forward
That
some
would
of
be
my
so-
favorites after we get done. Because I've replied to
so
some of these,
fun.
and the only one that eventually made it through to a recording, I didn't like the pitch. The interview was too much of just him doing a sales pitch.
Let's do something like completely that neither one of us would give any cares. I mean, I got one today about climate change. I'm like, oh yeah, that really matches Better Call Daddy. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to respond to that.
What's up? Yeah, right.
Let's do climate change.
I mean, see, I'm a
Please talk
hippie
to
though.
me
Like,
about your love of climate.
I'll just it's a dangly thing or a shiny thing. I'll be like, yeah, climate change. Where could I?
know Greta.
Where could where could I get one of them boats? I want to go on one of those whaling attacker boats that we go
The
after.
selfie boat. Bring Greta.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you got a deal.
Yeah, I would do. The boat, not the girl.
I wanted to say though, like for your podcast episode about how to be an awesome podcast guest, I actually heard something today that I thought was a little bit useful. I mean, these seem like things that you should already know, but if you want to be an awesome podcast guest, send them your bio ahead of time, send them your freaking headshot ahead of time, tell them 4 or 5 things that you could talk about. That actually is helpful, but
Yeah.
not in a Chat GPT way.
Ooh,
Be like,
ew,
hey,
gross.
Yeah.
I hate that.
If you want to be an awesome podcast guest, make it easy for the podcast host.
Yeah.
Here's 4 things I like to talk about. Here's my headshot and here's my bios. You don't have to ask me for it. That
Right.
actually is really good advice. I mean,
Yeah.
the host is probably going to ask you for it, but if they're 3 to 4 months ahead of content, they're not going to ask you for it right away.
Yep.
And
Give
if-
yourself a good shot at it. I think-
yeah. You want a good shot? Here's my media kit.
Have you ever
that ready?
been? Do you play music, Freddie? Do you play an instrument?
I used to play the alto sax.
So you know about music jamming, for example, right? And I think podcasting is a lot the same, where if you get a bunch of musicians that know how to play, they don't need sheet music, they can jam.
Right.
However, podcasters most of them aren't that experienced. They need the music, they need the prep work. Reena and I have read so much sheet music, we're tired of it, so we just jam. And you're good at it too. We're just, in my mind, just jamming. We just happen to be good at our instruments. But beginners can't be
I feel
expected to show up and just get on the merry-go-round and start talking.
I think that's also the importance of having a niche and focusing on what you're really good at. So, for instance, we have a client, her name is Dr. Terry Ann Samuel. She's a urogynecologist, and her show is called The Menopod for women who refuse to pause. And so it's all about menopause, and each guest is one of her patients, a
neat.
client.
Yeah, that's
And
cool.
so each episode is focused around a singular symptom. Now they do talk about, so one symptom might be hot flashes, but they also talk about some of the other stuff that is involved with menopause as well. But the core of the conversation will be around one specific symptom. And what makes Dr. Samuel so good is that, one, she's naturally hilarious, so unintentionally naturally funny, but also I think that because her show is specific to what she does as a urogynecologist, there's no other way, there's no way for her to lose. So because she's already within that, I don't want to call it a safety net, but she's in her zone of influence, her zone of genius.
Yeah.
So she knows what her podcast is going to be about. Whereas if Dr. Samuels wanted to have a podcast about, I don't know, fucking celebrities going through menopause, and then it starts to get, you're starting to introduce all these other outside factors to her show.
Yep.
And that might be, although, again, she's naturally funny and she's naturally charismatic, I would just posit that for any other urogynecologist with a similar show, it might be a little more difficult.
Did you guys hear that?
Celebrities go through menopause too.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Celebrities go through menopause too. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And now back to the wall.